Can I tell him that you're a
Yeah,
participant?
yeah, and I know him. So just let him know and
Okay.
I'll come home.
He,
You don't come home.
I heard, and he's been familiar. The stuff he put out so familiar. And so I think when we got,
Margot.
when we when we got people doing that kind of stuff, I think like Jamie and them, LeBron has followed that thing where he's going to use his platform.
My sister.
This your sister? Oh,
She's my vice.
okay. No, you know y'all went deep. I was at a event to Roger talking about HU Crump, HU.
Well, you know she's I one of my. Three of us. Oh wait, I gotta put some lipstick on. Wait. No, 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 don't go, don't go, because I gotta sneak out. Oh, oh wait. That looks terrible. I'm stretching. Yeah, Taraji's rowdy.
Got it. I yes. Can I turn it off for a while? Yeah, it's working.
Okay.
I love you. Thank you. Tell Mama.
Oh, that's unplugged. Yeah. So I'm going to put this one, yeah, here.
Okay. Right. Okay.
Because I still need somebody to press the turn and on my flag for that. So you can put her over there. Will you do that for me?
Check 1, 2. We struck oil. Check 1, 2. Check 1, 2. How's that sound? Sound all right? Check 1, 2. Okay.
All of you to this Dr. Charles W. Harris Public Policy Lecture. We are fortunate to have Dr. Harris with us today, and his introduction will come later. We are also very fortunate to have each of you. This event will be live streamed both on WPGR.tv, and you can click there on the web at Howard University School of Divinity, and you can also find it at C-SPAN. So on either event, either link, you should be able to see, for those of you who are not present, you should be able to see and hear the lecture and respondents for this afternoon. Let us take a moment to give thanks in prayer. Let justice roll down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream. We come before your presence, O God of and creator of the universe. Keep us forever in your path, we pray. We are honored to stand before you as children who believe in equality, in justice, in dignity, and human life. We value all who are within the sound of our voice, and we ask that you would quicken the lives of each and every person who is here and within the sound of our voices. May we forever stand for truth in this place. Amen. We've already indicated that this is the Charles W. Harris Lecture for Public Policy, and we are very honored on this day to host it at the School of Divinity. Let me say a word for why we are hosting it here. Martin Luther King once described the United States of America as an extremely sick nation. He said that we were a country fueled by the politics of rage and greed. We're also a country fueled by the politics of race and division. And for those of us who have experienced the underside of what that means, many of us have found ourselves unduly aligned with the politics of respectability. We have all lost our way, and a nation that would be great has found that it is faltering. It is so terribly important that in the name of justice, for our occasion and moderator, that is none other than the Reverend Kwame Osei Reed. Reverend Reed is an attorney, he is a clergy person, he is a political science major from college, he's a graduate of law school.
Thank you, Dean, and thank you all. And I do want to thank Dean Pollard and the entire staff of the Divinity School for making this happen in terms of the organizing and the receiving of the commitment to have the Charles W. Harris Lecture. But more than that, along with that, I also want to express appreciation for the vision that Dean Pollard has shown over the years. It is one in which he sees the preparation of persons for ministry, for service in society, the church, as a place where we accept the prophetic role and then we go in and be among the people who are struggling for fullness of life, for service to our God and service to one another. Along with vision, he's made it clear that he is committed to concern for their mothers. And you'll get the introduction later, but we're glad that the mother of one of those victims is here, along with those who represent them, who work with them. You'll get to hear from and all of those persons. But it was Dean Pollard's hearing Dr. Harris's call and his message that brings us here this day. So we are thankful for Dean Pollard, and we're thankful for the vision that Dr. Harris presented in all of his commitment to having public policy lectures, our being able to influence decisions that are made in our society, our government, our community, and in the academy. So they battle in the courtrooms and in the streets. So we're thankful for all of them. And I particularly want to now just emphasize our moderator. You see his biography in the program, and it says that he is consistently named as one of the top trial lawyers in Washington, D.C., acknowledges that he's nationally known, but Billy Martin is a super lawyer in this nation. He is an attorney. He has made a difference. He is making a difference. He will continue to make a difference. And we are thankful that he will take the program from here on. And what I
to be here at Howard University, my alma mater. When I came to Howard University in 1969, I had a dream. And I had a dream that I had an opportunity to get an education. It was an education at traditionally and predominantly African-American, historically black college. And it was very eye-opening to me, and they provided me with a very, very deep education. I was one of your early students. I remember when you came to the school, and we called him the... And Dr. Harris, I am honored to introduce your daughter, to Nika Harris-Jones, to say a few words both about why we're here today, about you, and the purpose of these lectures. Nika, will you join us?
Thank you very much and good afternoon. It's great to be here. I, as Billy mentioned, am Nika Harris-Jones. I am one of two. My sister, Angela Harris Oloratimi, could not join us, but of course she's with us in spirit. You have seen the accolades my father has achieved throughout his career. 32 father, Dr. Charles W. Harris.
To Dean Pollard, Dean of the School of Divinity, distinguished platform guest, members of the audience, greetings to you all. I would like for the record to show that my first words on this program are words of thanks to Howard University for giving me 30-some-odd years of very distinguished service, photos, and the key issue, I guess, before me was graduate school, and you know, most of the African University. Think not what Howard can do for you, but what you can do for Howard. So my answer was very clear then that I must establish an endowment fund for the young students that I taught for years in the university, and a prize that would maybe inspire some young person to strive to reach higher goals. Next step in implementing the goal of setting up an endowment fund. After my children, I don't know if they were happy about it, but they didn't try to interfere with it. Nika had just finished law school at Berkeley, so she gave me some pointers on some of the things that I should include in it. And I hired a law firm in Vienna, Virginia, who put the finishing touches, and the document was finally signed by the vice president at that time, who was Henry Jackson, and myself. The lawyer from Vienna prepared an MOU, a Memorandum of Understanding, and that particular document more or less officially established the endowed fund. The implementation of that is the beginning of the program. The fund was established in 2002, and we've had a number of lectures. The first one featured the dean. I think your program indicates that the dean of the law school at Berkeley, Dr. Lorenzo Morris, was chair of the department at that time. He's now, I think, chair of the faculty senate. And after that, several lectures were sponsored by the next chair of the department, who was Dr. Darrell Harris. I guess now we come to the point, how did the lecture get over to the School of Divinity? Well, Dean Pollard, I think, has made some comments about that. But it was something that I suppose was prophetic in a way, because I mentioned it to the chair of political science, and he reacted in a moderate way, and he quickly set up a committee. And then I wrote him a long letter pointing out why I wanted to transfer it to the lecture to Divinity for this year. I don't think he was thrilled about it, but Dr. Nwanze, who's interim chair of the department, is really the hero behind this lecture coming from political science to Divinity for this 1 year. It will return to the Department of Political Science next year and for the years to come. Dr. Reverend Shirley Gravely Curry, they worked very hard in bringing this about. So we're here today, and I'm convinced that the lecture is at the right place. We have the right keynote speaker. We had the right people planning this program, and we've come together over a problem that is a serious problem in this country, a serious problem. And as the Washington Post editorialized, or had a leading article some time ago, will it be a moment or a movement? And I'm just pleased that Howard University can be a part of trying to make this a movement. Thank you.
Dr. Harris, thank you. And I asked him, tell me what the subject matter is and what we're doing. And he explained to me, as you see the kind of the caption, the title of what we're talking about today is transitioning from the moment to the movement, analyzing social issues revealed in recent killings of unarmed African Americans by law enforcement. And that's a subject matter that if you put your head in the sand, you still hear, and didn't want to see it, you'd still hear the gunshots. You can't get away from this. So when I read that, I thought the only issue I take with this is the fact that we're analyzing social issues that will present to you the views of some very distinguished, highly successful, and well-known lawyers. Our lecturer today is Attorney Benjamin L. Crump. And if you did not know the name, when you see his face, you'll know him from TV. But it's not the TV law, it's not the TV persona that you're going to hear today, and it's not the TV persona that's dealing with the shooting death of Trayvon Martin and the trial of Trayvon Martin and the acquittal of George Zimmerman, that there was an attorney standing beside the family speaking, attorneys, I don't want to leave your partner out of this, attorneys standing with the family, speaking on behalf of that family and making people appreciate the issues. Whether you agree with the issue or disagree with the issue, Attorney Crump has been very successful at bringing it to the forefront of the American society. You'll see him frequently on CNN, on ABC on 2020, on NBC Today, on MSNBC, and he's always taking the position fighting for his clients. We also know that Mr. Crump is recently involved in the filing of a lawsuit and the representation in Cleveland. And we have with us the mother of Tamir Rice, Miss Amaria Rice, sorry about that, who will talk with us about some of those experiences. But Attorney Crump is going to talk about how it is that the practice of law is a privilege that carries a great responsibility. In addition, we will have a response by respondents. First, Wanda Moore, and Wanda is an assistant attorney general in New Jersey. Her office focuses on community policing and training and police conduct, and I know that she will have some things to add as to what Mr. Crump will share with us. We also have Professor Trullier, who is of Howard University, the School of Divinity, and he has served as an associate of the Applied Theology and Director at Howard since 2003. Prior to joining Howard, he was a visiting distinguished professor of religion and public policy at the Templeton Honors College at Eastern University. He also held faculty positions at Yale, the Center for Urban Theological Studies at Geneva. And with that, I'm going to ask Mr. Crump to come up to share his words. Our featured lecturer will talk about that transition from the moment to the movement and the role that lawyers and he play in this transition. Mr. Crump.
Before I begin my comments to you, there's a few people I want to recognize who are very dear to me. I have the honor of being the president-elect of the National Bar Association, and thank you. And Billy, I know they say lawyers are always trying to bill hours and they have a lot going on, but they took time out their busy schedules to come and be here. So I want to acknowledge one of the bottom of my heart for being here and giving me advice and counsel. You know, when you're out there on the front lines and you fight in the fight, you need your brothers and sisters to encourage you and give you wisdom that it's hard to see when you're right there in the pinnacle of the battle. Also, you know, Billy is a great lawyer, but he's part of a dynamic duo. And you know, one of the things, I'm going to talk to you, Crump's word for it. I'll take my most able co-counsel, Walter Madison's word for it. I want the grand juries convened in Cleveland, Ohio, sometime in the next few months. The face of police brutality in America would be that of a 12-year-old child, baby Tamir Rice. We have his mother here with us, Miss Amaria Rice. Y'all please give her a round of applause and your prayers. Very beginning that, now we're here with these women speaking up for our children, standing up for our children, defending our children, ready to fight for our children, and if need be, ready to die for our children because they're our children, and you're not going to be allowed to tell our children that they end up for our little brothers and sisters who are looking to us. Our community is screaming out to us. To the lawyers, screaming out to the preachers, the doctors, all those people who sacrifice for us to get these, the ones who escalate situations. Certain times in certain communities, for whatever reason, Billy, they use different procedures, seems like, to escalate situations. And so when you watch that surveillance video in Cleveland, Ohio, the police officer comes up in such a reckless way, how normal that day, that tragic day, and what they do to Tajay, this 14-year-old girl who sees her brother lying on the ground, just been shot, kicking in the snow, they manhandle her. They tackle her. They tackle her not once, but when she tries to get back up off the ground, they tackle her again. And she's just trying to get to stand up for our children. We are on the mountains to everybody. Don't think that it can't happen to your child. Remember, Trayvon was in a gated, and y'all know what the narrative is. Oh, I felt threatened. I felt my life was in danger. The unarmed person of color reached for my weapon, so I had to kill him. And they keep justifying these things based on just this narrative. They're shackled. And the police kill her and they say, we felt in fear of our life. And they try to sweep it right up under the rug. So when will America challenge the narrative? We hope that do you so defined that it would change? And I keep saying, well, it didn't change for Tamir Rice. It didn't change being planted. And so why do we keep accepting in the standard police narrative. He was threatening. I felt in fear of my life. It keeps happening over and over again. Oh, let me back up for one quick second. Tamir Rice's case, the shooter, Walter, you should have pulled my coattail. The person, a daughter. And those moments are just, I think about Tracy Martin and Trayvon. You just never can get that sound out of your head, that phone call when they first call. And you know, they try to sometimes the stereotype black man as if we don't love our children and we don't accept our response. Man, I'm here to tell you, Tracy Martin loved his son Trayvon. And when he on that call, y'all remember Tracy, you know, I see in our community people in court get arrested every day with no evidence at all, with an innuendo. Somebody said you look like them. You know, they thought you was in the area. And that's, but, I mean, you had all the evidence, probably because it's such a low standard, to just at least arrest them and give us our due process, give us our day in the ground. You answer the bell, and you just don't know what's going to happen. People in Japan talking about from Tokyo and justice. I mean, you just never know what's going to happen. And lastly, before I get ready to leave you, don't think you can't make a difference. You can make a difference. And I'm talking about to all of y'all, young and old alike. That's a people. There's a Michael Brown. Young people got on social media and they started talking about, this kid called me up, I guess while he was studying, Dane. He said, Attorney Crump, I was thinking after reading about, I read your article on Trayvon, and I want to start a petition online to see if that can help, because I just feel we got to do something. And I just wanted to get your permission and see if it was okay, and ask his.
And I know what you've gone through, having read some of the articles in Cleveland, written about you and what's going on with you and your family. Would you feel comfortable coming up and sharing, from your perspective, something about Tamir? Can you tell us something about your son, something about that day? You take a minute? Thank you. Will you help me welcome Mr. Rice?
Activities for he wouldn't have to be on the streets. You know what I'm saying? Just gave him structure, you know, and I believe in that a lot. But, you know, you can't watch every second, you know, things that your children do, unfortunately. But he had a promising career, loved all sports, and a great swimmer, helper. He was a helper at his school. By him being so tall and maybe almost the tallest one in his school, even in the sixth grade, you know, I knew that they was gonna make it. My other three children, they're gonna make it too, but you know, I knew my son had a promising career. That's all I could tell you. He excelled in everything. He was just recently put on the drum line at his school, so he had a lot of talent and tricks, and just a wonderful kid. Beautiful smile, very mannerable. Everywhere I went, they always say my children mannerable and nice, and you know, I take pride in that. I invested a lot in that. You know, I made a lot of sacrifices for myself too, just to make sure that they have the things that they need.
Why don't you tell them about that day?
Okay. I was robbed of that. I was robbed of my son's future. Let me just say that. A little about that day is, it's a normal Saturday. I had just fixed lunch for Tajay and Tamir, and they ate their lunch and went outside. I gave them a couple dollars to go to the store, and I didn't think I put my other son in the police car because he was trying to get to his little brother. So I have two children in the police car, them giving me an ultimatum to either stay with the 14-year-old or go with the 12-year-old, and that's just how my day was that day, and it just been a nightmare ever since. It's been a nightmare. We're doing the best we can under the circumstances. I'm sorry. Yeah, we're doing the best we can under the circumstances, but I just never thought I'd be in a situation like this, ever. You know, I'm a mom, you know, I'm vulnerable, and I just never thought. I'm still numb to the situation a lot, y'all. Still numb. I still can't believe it. I'm still waiting for answers, looking for justice. But what I can say is that I also, well, some of the community has.
A theologian. So we'll get a chance to, you don't mind going last, do you? Huh? Nope. You're all right. We're going to bring up Professor Trulier to talk about these issues. Now, we called a respondent, and he's going to respond in a way, but I think that you will not hear a lot of people actually disagreeing with these concepts, because these are concepts that I think that we're all looking for solutions for, and they're real everyday issues. Professor, will you?
Does not dehumanize. We have to stop drinking the thug Kool-Aid. We have to stop drinking the animal Kool-Aid. We have to stop with the name-calling and the objectifying that we ourselves do with our own in the name of distancing ourselves from them. The second thing that came for me out of this, aside from the theology of life matters, is his notation that these instances belong to all of us. The things that I've been doing that 80% of all young black males who are incarcerated are also crime survivors. They don't think of themselves that way, but the Vera Institute has done research, and we've discovered that when you interview young men who've been incarcerated, they come home and say, have you ever been a victim of crime, ever been a survivor of crime? They say, no, never. Then you say, well, how many of you have ever been jumped by somebody with no cause? And they all put their hands up. How many of you ever had something taken from you by force? They all put their hands up. How many of you had your house burglarized? They put their hands up. They've been victimized. They have survived trauma. And unless we are engaged, it was okay for 2 weeks until a young man came up to me and he said, Pastor, I don't know you. He said, I used to play drums in your choir. He said, I don't know you. He told me his mother's name. She was on my staff. Before I got out of that facility, I met 7 young men whose mothers, sisters, wives, and cousins I had pastored. Every single one of those kids on our streets are connected to us. And now we've got faces. Garner, we've got Trayvon Amir Rice, we have Walter Scott, we have faces. The civil rights movement, a one-day boycott in Montgomery, became a long-standing movement because it had a face. Read Martin Luther King's speech launching the boycott in Montgomery, and you will find that 1/3 of it
into understanding these crimes and not just accepting that they've occurred, but trying to see what happens tomorrow with either reentry, community aspects, or second chances. So with that, Assistant Attorney General Moore, will you share some thoughts with us? Thank you.
So I just want to start with thanking the Howard family for having us here, and to all our distinguished guests. I particularly want to thank you, Dr. Harris, for allowing us to be a part of this process. So as we did fugitive safe surrender, and we'll show you, we did it around the state. We began to do first a look at what we knew were the numbers, how many warrants were we talking about, how many people were involved. We then began to look at communities that would help us. And we started by going to the faith community and working with them to saying, hey, look, would you help us? And that brings me back to a comment that was just said moments ago. And one of the things that was said was that faith communities are motivated by the issues. That's what you said. But what we found is that when we knocked on the door, when we said we need your help, we'd like for you to help us and really get this ready, they actually opened up the door and they began to work with us. So much so that we were able to help almost 18,000 people over a 4-day period come into the church, meet and greet us, and go through a process where their warrants were cleared up and resolved on the spot. We did it over a 4-day period. Thank you. It was 18, to date we have 17,800 individuals. We know that approximately 2/3 of those individuals were male. Most of them had 2 to 3 outstanding warrants, and we were able to resolve them. So I'll stop there. We start right above the church. This particular slide is showing what we did in Atlantic City at Grace Assembly of God. So, next, please. We advertised. One of the things that we found in this work is that people didn't trust us as law enforcement, so they wouldn't necessarily come out and turn themselves in and surrender. And so for the first day, people would stand across the street from the church before they came in, and they would wait for people to come back out. And when they saw that they came back out, they started to come back in. And so that was one of the reasons why we began to do this. But what was really important is that it's really through word of mouth. So we got it out there in the message. You see our New Jersey Transit telling the story for us. Please, Jennifer. Of course, we also have worked in various communities, particularly our Spanish-speaking communities, and making sure that everybody really understood that they could be a part of it based on the requirements of the programs. Yes, ma'am.
Over the past few years, a special law enforcement program called Safe Surrender has seen 18,000, mostly non-violent fugitives, turn themselves in peacefully in a dozen cities. And that's tonight's Sunday cover.
Your life, and how can you enjoy your marriage or your family when you have this heaviness hanging over you?
Melo was allowed to pay a small court fee and leave with probation.
We'll celebrate every day.
And after paying $589 in fines, Kyron Richardson will no longer be living under the radar.
The biggest thing is I'm not a fugitive anymore.
To the marshals and police, the program eliminates risk to them.
Anytime a person surrenders, that's one less foot chase, one less car chase, and we see the results too often where somebody is injured or killed as a result of a car chase.
Darnell Wright had a handful of traffic violations.
It's still intimidating when you come in because you don't know what's going to happen.
By the end of the day, with a smaller than expected fine, his tickets were cleared.
Right there. New destiny, that's what I got.
Over the past 4 days, more than 1,000 people surrendered in Wilmington, clearing more than 4,000 cases, and only 6 of those people were arrested.
So a little bit about fugitive safe surrender. And 0.5% of the people that we encounter are taken, and that's usually because they wanted on a felony over a 4-day period. Next. The last one we did year before last was in Jersey City. That's the Jersey City Armory. Again, 4,000 people showed up in that 4-day window, allowing us to resolve tens of thousands of matters. Then we featured on Due Process a little bit about the work and how we were talking about our community engagement and what communities thought were important. So I wanted to share that with you because that was a part of what we were asked to do, is to talk about the role of law enforcement, how communities can be engaged. And so there are a lot of different efforts that we've been working on, but I thought this one might ring with you.
And we as African Americans fought for civil rights in the 60s, in the Civil Rights Act, which was one of the key pieces of legislation. Along with the Civil Rights Act came a section of law in Title 42 of the United States Code Section 1414 allows investigations of police departments by the Department of Justice. And they have that investigation in Cleveland. They have that investigation going on in Philadelphia. They have one, I believe, in Newark. They've had them in New Orleans. I was the attorney of record representing the city of Cincinnati in 2003 when Cincinnati had those investigations. The reason I raise that, and I know that we all have seen Attorney General, former Attorney General Eric Holder, what was fought for in the 60s was a showing that the laws applied and protected all of us, equal protection. And when you listen to Charles Hamilton Houston and Thurgood Marshall, and they talked about it was equal protection of the laws. Well, now the laws are written in a way that we understand that they provide equal protection, and we are now.
The preacher and the Attorney General person can't say a word or two. Margo, we push for Michael Brown's tragic killing in Ferguson, Missouri, the Mike Brown law, which I pray and hope will happen because I think it does make a difference and it'll be such a fitting legacy for Michael Brown. But let me quickly say this here. History happened this week in Ferguson, Missouri, and we're in the house of God, and so they say the moral arc is long, but it bends towards justice. Ferguson, Missouri, they had 3 times as many people in that community come out and vote than they ever had in history. And so I think that was a direct response of our community saying, we're going to do something about them killing our children. And now we have 3 African-American city commissioners out of Ferguson, Missouri. Now that C-SPAN is watching, let's make sure we applaud those individuals and so forth. To answer your question directly, I think cameras really are good because they let us know what happens. It makes it transparent, and that's what our community wants. That's what we want.
Dr. Marsha Coleman Adebayo. I'm the coordinator for the Hands Up Coalition DC. And we're the organization that launched major demonstrations in front of the Department of Justice to demand that the Department of Justice release the civil rights reports. And obviously we were very unhappy with the results of those reports, but we did important for the families to have that information so that they could process the fact that their government is not being responsible and holding police accountable for the deaths of our children. My son has been stopped by police over 30 times. And that is very common. If you ask most young black people, how many times have you been stopped? It is times. And he was a Howard University student, and his trauma was such that he had to drop out of Howard for 1 year because of the anxiety and depression caused by being stopped by the police so many times. We are having a Million Moms March. We hope that you can join us on May 8th. We're also asking our brothers.
The news, CNN, C-SPAN, and I was amazed at how quickly the media, in collusion with the police, had jumped from outraged indignation to blaming the victim once again, all that he had brought upon himself. Well, he ran because he had X number of dollars in child was afraid on. Oh, but types of information services.
Ms. Moore, can you help us with that?
Sure. One of the things that I didn't get a chance to get to is some of the youth development that we do, right? Because I talked a little bit about the data and research and how we look at what is happening in communities. And so in this process, we have something called the Municipal Planning Board process. And what it is just development boards. And so these boards actually meet with our local police departments. We meet at the local school boards. We might meet at the high school.
Desire to get that information. And we have to construct programs within the faith community itself so that we're not waiting for the heroes and the champions to fight through the red tape to get stuff to us. So that part of what we're trying to do in the Healing Communities Project is go to congregations and teach them what questions to ask. What information do you need? How can you get involved in? And then they got a new governor. And the new governor said, we're not going to put any more money into community-based reentry programs. What we're going to do is we're going to expand the Department of Corrections and run our own programs. And so all the money came off the table, and all of a sudden the reentry program started to die off. Why? Because we were depending on the government to fund the community-based programs. What we've got to do in the faith community is to recognize that we have capacity and that we have ideas and we have people. We just haven't been able to generate the motivation. That's why I'm running around the country saying we've got faces now. Mm-hmm. We've got Samaria Rice, we've got Tamir Rice, we've got Walter Scott. I went to Ferguson in December and talked with people. We've got people like Tracy Blackman. We've got faces now. She's a pastor who's pastoring the young people. Somebody says the preachers aren't leading in Ferguson. No, they're not leading in Ferguson. The young people are, and Pastor Tracy Blackman and Pastor Tim are pastoring them.
Okay.
That's the same model that Kelly Miller Smith used in Nashville, Tennessee during the Civil Rights Movement. He didn't.
That we can have that in communities across this city and across the country. And my son grew up at a time where in upper northwest D.C., the 2nd District apparently had a philosophy to hold the police department, but the officers in the neighborhood knew the kids, knew us. Now, I think my husband made a difference that they knew the kids because he was active. So I also think we as parents have a role to play in how we deal.
That we could do, I think, to connect the dots, right? There are other programs that are happening. There are faith programs. There are other communities who are doing it on their own, thinking through their own strategies. But how do we connect together, not just in New Jersey, not just here in the district, but across the country? And so we certainly would be open to continue the dialogue to figure out how we can make those bridges and connect them, not just locally, but throughout the country. It's very needed.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Audrey McDowell. I'm an associate minister at East Friendship Baptist Church and a student at Wesley Theological Seminary. My question is, in light of the videotapes that we've seen, where they are shooting people and basically just leaving them on the ground to die, I would like to know what are the legal requirements for police regarding giving life-saving means when they've shot someone.
We're dealing with the same issue in Cleveland.
I'll be very direct with that response. Each state is governed by their own commanders for training and qualifications. One of the things that probably should be done in bringing some cohesiveness on that issue is that there be a mandate nationwide, because humanity is the real aim. And the earlier question about the body cameras, wonderful idea, but there should be no requirement for a person to have this simple humanity to say that that child or person wants to get home safely just as much as I do as the officer. So in the spirit of humanity, the standard should be the same. Some states require and make it mandatory.
The lawyers would argue is that the pain and suffering was enhanced by the fact that there was no aid injured. And one of the questions that we talked about earlier is that how is it that you cause society to recognize these issues if passing of laws doesn't do it? And the answer was you sue them.
I don't know exactly.
Sue them.
Yeah, where we sue them. Yeah, and because, Johnny Cochran said something deep to me. He said that, he lost a case witnesses. And it's true because perception becomes reality. And he also said, you go up there with your client.
Comprise 4 things. When a county executive, legislator, or mayor and police chief take office, it is mandated that within 3 years, they reduce the number of deaths via law enforcement by 50%. If they don't reach that goal within 3 years, they're terminated. In addition to that, they do not receive any pension. That's the first thing. The second thing would be the mayor and the police and legislators who are at the top of an organization, once they have looked at the previous year and they see, okay, we've had 100 deaths. We have 3 years to cut that by 50%. If they don't reach that goal within the first year.
Recidivate. Do we incentivize police departments based on the number of arrests they make, or do we incentivize police departments based on public safety becoming better in the community, okay, through the practice of de-escalation practices that Attorney Crump was making. So the concept is brilliant because what it attacks at its core is the current incentivizing of over-arrests, over-incarceration.
I'm all for prayer. I believe prayer changes things, but I believe, especially in this time and day and age, that action is necessary. I just feel that there is, I guess my question would be, what would be the danger of not doing anything when, especially as young black people, you see that when you do something, it produces either little to no results or negative results. So what would be the motivation for taking action?
Ms. Moore?
Well, you know, I think two things. One is, you know, there are obviously a lot of things that you want to accomplish and things that you've done, and it happens to be a national issue that many young people are looking at. And one of the things that we struggle with, quite frankly, is making sure that we have youth voice in what we do, right? A lot of things happen at the decision level, you know. How can we get those voices, which I believe are the authentic voices, and really a part of the equation? And if you exclude those voices, you're never going to get to it. So I would ask that you make sure that both you and others, and particularly other young people, are at the table and that your voices are heard, because if your voices are not heard, we don't get the full story. How do we get this right without the full story? How do we get this right without understanding what are the needs, what are the issues, and how can we help?
Right now, that you can either, the only people fighting this are the folks making money off it. And basically, that's the criminal justice system where it's incentivized improperly, like Brother King said, that, and especially prosecutors, okay? And then the companies that are making money off of the slave labor in the prisons and the private prison companies. They're the only people that are fighting this. I was at a summit 2 weeks ago, and the two keynote speakers on changing this stuff were Cory Booker and Newt Gingrich. Okay? There is bipartisan support for this stuff. The only people who are fighting it are the ones that are making money off of the current system, and then the only reason that it's not moving faster is that more of us haven't owned this as an issue.
Thank you. We have one final question. Please introduce yourself and let us know what your question is, please.
All right, thank you. Hello, my name is Isatu Young, and I'd just first like to start off by saying hello and thank you so much for your time. On behalf of my classmates at Howard University, I'd just like to thank you very much.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you. My question is pertaining to the community policing. This is a conversation that I've had in one of my classes. Do you think, yes or no, this is the question in class, that community policing, like the relationship between black communities and police departments can be mended? Do we think that? And that's what our professor asked us. And the question that I want to ask you all is, do you think that it's a good idea for us to our neighborhoods? And sure, it's better to have a relationship than none at all, I guess. But what do you guys think?
Thank you.
Sorry about the microphone. I know we're supposed to touch it here, but he touched it already. So I just want to share with you a story. And I showed you a little bit about fugitive safe surrender, but we didn't have time to walk you. And so what happens in this scenario is we bring people who are all wanted, right, with hundreds of those of us who are in law enforcement, in the courts, in the judicial system, and coming together. And what happens at that moment when people are there to really help is this very, that is our question to decide. What is our role in that, and how do you do it? And I think that's what you're saying. What is the role of community in community policing? Right, that's something that we have to sit down and really work together what that looks like, and how we then determine what happens in the neighborhoods and have control and have a place where the same mutual respect that we see in our initiatives happens. You know, one of the things we say all the time, and we expected nothing less, in all of the times that we did this event where we had thousands of people, we're moving a lot of volunteers, it's a tremendous effort, takes a lot of work. At no point did we have one incident of any vandalism, of any trouble. That's because we all walked through those doors of that house of worship knowing that we were there to come and help one another. And that is where it turns, and that's where you see humanity. So don't give up. Help us figure out how we can make this happen so you can see it.
Let me ask Professor. Professor, I know that you've put some thought into it. And Ben, I'm going to last issue for you, and you get the closing remarks. So, Professor, as our last comment from the panel, did you understand yet? Do you remember the young lady's question?
Yeah.
Will you answer that, please?
I did it, and I have a lot of respect for advising congregations, faith communities in which law enforcement officers served, to help them get a different understanding of what their role might be. You had policemen in Boston climbing the steps of the Hancock building, whatever the big building is in Boston. I don't know Boston that well. Boston's Hancock, isn't it? Okay, it's either Boston or Chicago. Hancock, right. Steps in the Hancock building, getting job applications for young people to have summer jobs. Cops were doing that. But it came because the faith community of the law enforcement officers themselves were part of the strategy. So this isn't a black problem, okay? This is a community-wide problem. And so our communities need to be strengthened. Their communities need to be transformed, and we know what works. It's just a matter of having the will to get it done.
Thank you. Thank you. As I turn this back over to Kwame, I would like to just end with a quote from Charles Hamilton Houston that addresses these issues and the role of the lawyer on civil rights issues. He says, and I quote, "A lawyer's either a social engineer or he's a parasite on..."
Future direction to us, so we need that from you. Now, we also, in addition to looking to your inspiration, Dr. Anthony Mays, who is doing the streaming for us, at least he has a company that's doing the streaming for it, he owns that company, has given me a very inspiring message. You know, we were going to let him talk here, but we're going to do it in the reception. He has a few words to say I think you will find inspiring as you develop your own ideas. But I do want to emphasize the perception that after we call on Attorney Benjamin Crump to come up one more time, that we're going to go to the reception. It's in the Pratt room, next room over, out the hallway and out here. So we invite you to come and share with us in the reception. And just only a few more words are going to be said at that time. But I do also want to emphasize that you see on your program that we give the Charles W. Harris Public Policy Prize.
On your program, I put the pressure on you to go Google it. I want you to see it, to want to do something. Pitch, I don't know what will. I thank you. I saw Kevin Judd, NBA, stand your ground. Hopefully we'll do something on Tamir or something that the young people can connect to motivate them, so we not only tie the legal community and the community together, but also tie the old and young together, because
Yeah, I decided to come on out.
enjoy that a lot.